Long after midnight, when everyone in the neighborhood of Akombi was asleep, when even the street dog had stopped wandering, a scream broke the silence of Irewole Estate. This scream wasn't from someone getting hurt. It wasn't a scream of pain. It was something much worse. This was the sound of a man realizing he had been tricked. Neighbors would argue for weeks about where that scream came from. Some said it echoed from the abandoned mansion at the end of the street, the one with the rusty gate and overgrown garden. Others insisted it came from deep within the earth, as if something ancient had been released. But the elders, they knew exactly whose voice it was, Sadiq Bello, and they all agreed on something else, that the scream belonged to a man who had just learned the hardest lesson there is. Power does not protect you, it exposes you. But I am getting ahead of myself. To understand that scream, we need to go back to when Sadiq was just another struggling shopkeeper, invisible to the world, hungry for something he could not name. Years before that terrible night, Sadiq Bello ran a small electronics shop near Balogun Junction. It wasn't much, a cramped space with flickering lights, shelves filled with phone chargers, old radios, and repair tools. The kind of place people walk past without really seeing. And that was the problem. Sadiq worked harder than most men in Akombi. He opened early, closed late, treated customer fairly, kept his promises, and paid his debt. He did everything right. But effort didn't lead to influence. When politicians drove through the junction in their shiny SUVs, they didn't see him. When government contracts were handed out at council meetings, his name was never mentioned. When powerful men exchanged favor over glasses of palm wine, Sadiq wasn't even a thought in their mind. This invisibility hurt him more than poverty ever could. At night, after closing a shop, Sadiq could count his money, not because he had much, but because holding those scripts bill, even for a moment, made him feel like he mattered. Hard work, he would whisper to himself, is for men without power. But Sadiq wasn't foolish. He was observant, dangerously observant. He began to watch the powerful men who passed through Akombi like he was preparing for an exam. He noticed which men were greeted first at social gatherings. He saw which voices could silence an entire room with a single word. He paid attention to which mistakes were forgiven and which were punished. Slowly, he began to understand something. Power was not about being the smartest or the kindest or even the richest. Power was about presence, about making people believe you held something they needed, even when you held nothing at all. One evening, Sadiq attended a naming ceremony for a distant relative's newborn. He arrived early, hoping to make connections. He stayed late, helping to pack chairs and sweep the compound. No one noticed him. Then Chief Daramola arrived. The change was instant. Chairs shifted, conversation paused, smiles became wider, more eager. The entire room bent toward Chief like grass bowing before the wind. What struck Sadiq was this: Chief Daramola barely spoke. He didn't explain himself. He didn't justify his decision. He didn't laugh at people's jokes or compliment their clothes. He simply existed. And everyone listened. That night, lying on his thin mattress, Sadiq couldn't sleep. He replayed that moment over and over in his mind. The way the room transformed the instant Chief Daramola entered. Something settled in Sadiq's chest. He didn't want respect. He didn't even want money. He wanted authority. The kind that made people nervous. The kind that made them remember your name. A few days later, Sadiq met his old friend Kunle Adeyemi at their usual spot, a roadside store that sold roasted plantain and groundnuts beneath a flickering light. Kunle was one of the few people who still treated Sadiq like a human being, not someone to impress, not someone to use, just a friend. Kunle, Sadiq said, stirring his tea slowly. Have you ever noticed that some men don't wait their turn? Kunle looked up, chewing thoughtfully. I have. I have also noticed those men don't sleep peacefully. Sadiq smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Peace is overrated. Kunle set down his food. You are hungry for something dangerous, Sadiq. I am tired of being invisible. Every shortcut hides a death, my brother. Every single one. But Sadiq had already stopped listening. That conversation, honest, raw, from a place of genuine concern, would be the last real one they ever had. Because Sadiq had already made his decision. He just didn't know the price yet. The rain came that night without warning. One moment, the sky was clear. The next, water hammered the zinc roofs of Akombi like a thousand angry fists. As Sadiq locked up his shop, fumbling with his keys in the downpour, he noticed something unbelievable. An old woman stood across the road, completely dry. Rain fell everywhere except on her, Mama Zenob. Even her name whispered weight in Akombi. She was the kind of woman elders speak about in whispers, the kind children were warned never to approach, the kind who appeared when you were thinking thoughts you shouldn't think. You watch powerful men, she said, her voice cutting through the rain like it wasn't even there. But you never ask how they sleep at night. Sadiq tried to sound confident. I'm not afraid of success. She stepped closer and despite the rain, he could smell something acrid, like burning herbs and old leather. Success is easy, Sadiq Bello. Any fool with luck can stumble into success. Her eyes locked onto his. Power is expensive. Then she told him about a place, River Aroko, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts town where forgotten deals were remembered. Come tomorrow night, she said. Come alone and come ready to decide what you are truly willing to trade. The rain stopped as suddenly as it started. When Sadiq looked up, she was gone. The next night, Sadiq found the warehouse exactly where she had described it. The building looked like it had been forgotten by time itself. Rusted metal sheets, broken windows, weed growing through crack in the concrete. The kind of place people avoided, not because of what they knew, but because of what they felt. Inside, the air was thick, rust, dampness, and underneath it all, something else, something that smelled like old promises. Mama Zainab sat on an overturned crate, a single candle burning beside her. I want control, Sadiq said, trying to keep his voice steady. I want influence. I want people to remember my name. She reached into her wrapper and pulled out a small leather pouch tied with red thread. This, she said, placing it on the ground between them, will change circumstances. People directly. People change themselves when circumstances change. Doors will open. Opportunities will find you. Your words will carry weight. Sadiq's hand shook. This was it. This was the shortcut he had been searching for. And the price? He asked. Mama Zainab's face remained neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. Pity, maybe, or recognition. When power comes to collect its debt, she said slowly, you must not hesitate. You must give what is asked without question or delay. What will be asked? That depends on what power decides you can afford to lose. A candle flame flickered, though there was no wind. Sadiq stared at the pouch. Every rational part of his brain screamed at him to walk away, to go back to his small shop, his small life, his small but honest existence. But that scream from the future, the one we started with, it hadn't happened yet. He couldn't hear it. All he could hear was his own hunger. I accept, he said. The moment the word left his mouth, the candle went out. In the darkness, he heard Mama Zenob's voice, distant now, as if she were already gone. Then this is sealed. Here is what you need to understand about power gained the wrong way. It doesn't announce itself with thunder and lightning. It doesn't kick down your door. It arrives politely, almost apologetically. The morning after the warehouse, Sadiq's phone rang. A banker he had never met wanted to discuss a loan. Terms that made no sense. Interest rates that seemed like mistakes. 2 days later, a contractor approached him about a partnership, government contracts, infrastructure projects, opportunities that men worked their entire lives for. By the end of the week, a politician, a real politician, the kind who rode in convoys, stopped by Sadiq's shop just to say hello, just to check in on a valued member of the community. Sadiq's shop expanded, then relocated to a better street, then multiplied into 3 locations. When he spoke at a community meetings now, people listened. When he made suggestions, they were followed. When he walked into a room, conversations shifted to acknowledge his presence. He was becoming the man he had watched, the man he had envied, and it felt incredible. Within a year, Sadiq married Amina Azan, the daughter of a respected family who would never have considered him before. The wedding was the kind Akombi talked about for months. 300 guests, a live band, catering from the city. Politicians gave speeches. Business owners brought lavish gifts. Amina was beautiful, educated, kind. Everything Sadiq had dreamed of but never thought he deserved. On their wedding night, she held his hand and smiled. I know you have worked hard for this, she said. I am proud of you. Sadiq smiled back, but something cold moved in his stomach. She didn't know. She couldn't know. And he would never tell her. When their son Yusuf was born, the house overflowed with gifts, gold bracelets, savings bonds, promises of future favors. Sadiq held his son for the first time and felt something crack inside him. Not break, just crack. This tiny perfect being, this innocent life that had trusted him completely. For the first time since the warehouse, Sadiq felt something other than hunger. He felt fear. Amina prayed 5 times a day, thanking God for their blessing. Sadiq counted his influence instead, trying not to think about the unpaid debt. The dream started small. At first, just flashes, locked doors, keys that didn't quite fit, always that went nowhere. Then they became more specific. In every dream, Sadiq stood before a door. He always held the key, but when he tried to lock the doors, he realized something terrible. The door opened inward. He wasn't locking something out, he was locking himself in. He would wake up sweating, his heart pounding. Amina's hand on his shoulder, asking if he was okay. Just stress, he would say, just business. But he knew better. Mama Zenob visited occasionally, never announced, just there, at the market, outside his office, once inexplicably in the car rearview mirror, at the traffic light. She never said much, just watched him with those knowing eyes. Once she spoke, enjoy it, Sadiq Bello. Power does not stay long. Then she would vanish, leaving him wondering if she had been there at all. 3 years after the warehouse, Mama Zainab appeared at Sadiq's gate. It was late. Yusuf was asleep upstairs. Amina was in the kitchen, humming a lullaby. Sadiq saw her through the window and his blood turned to ice. He knew before she spoke, before she moved. He knew. "It is time," she said when he opened the gate. His mouth went dry. For what? But he already knew. God help him, he already knew. "Your promise, Sadiq Bello. Power has come to collect." She looked past him towards the house, through the second floor where a night light glowed in Yusuf's window. "Your firstborn." The word tilted. The ground beneath his feet felt liquid. "No," he whispered. Then louder. "No! Anything but that. Take the money. Take the business. Take it all back. Just not." "Power does not bargain," Mama Zainab said. Her voice neither cruel nor kind, simply factual. "You made a pact. You enjoy the benefit. Now you pay the price." Sadiq slammed the gate between them, his hand shaking so violently he could barely grip the metal. "I reject this. You hear me? I reject this." Mama Zainab's voice drifted through the darkness, soft but absolute. "Then power will take what it is owed with interest." The collapse didn't just happen all at once. It happens the way buildings crumble, one support at a time. First, the contract fell through. Technical issues, paperwork problems. Suddenly, project Sadiq had been promised went to other men. Then the bank account froze. Investigations, audits, questions about money sources that Sadiq couldn't answer honestly. Friends stopped returning calls. Business partners found excuses. The politicians who had smiled in his face now looked through him like it was glass. Within weeks, Sadiq was back where he started. Worse, actually, because now he had dependents, a wife and a son. A son who was getting sick. It started with Amina, headache that wouldn't stop, fatigue that sleep couldn't cure, weight loss that made her clothes hang loose. Doctor ran tests, everything came back normal. Stress, they said. Depression, maybe. Has anything changed at home? Then Yusuf started weakening. A 3-year-old boy who had been lively and loud suddenly became quiet, stopped playing, stopped eating. His eyes, once bright, became dull. More doctors, more tests, more nothing. "We can't find anything wrong," they said, looking at Sadiq with suspicion, like maybe he was hurting his own family. If only they knew. Kunle showed up one afternoon, uninvited. He sat across from Sadiq in the living room they had once hosted parties and now felt like a tomb. "You made a deal," Kunle said quietly. Not a question, a statement. Sadiq said nothing. "Whatever it was, whatever you promised, you need to fulfill it before it is too late." "I can't," Sadiq whispered. "Then they will die, Sadiq. Your wife, your son, they will waste away and no doctor will know why. Is that what you want?" Sadiq head dropped into his hands. "What kind of choice is that?" Kunle stood to leave. At the door, he turned back. "It is the choice you made 3 years ago. This is just the bill coming due." One morning, Sadiq woke to silence. Not peaceful silence, wrong silence. He ran to Yusuf's room, empty, bed made like he had never been there. He ran to the main bedroom, Amina's side. Cold, no struggle, no notes, no sign of forced entry or departure, just absence. His wife and his son had been erased from the world like they had never existed at all. Neighbors claimed they never saw anyone leave. No cars, no movement. They were simply gone. Sadiq ran to the warehouse by River Aroko. She was there. Of course she was there. Mama Zainab sat in the same spot. like she had never left, like 3 years hadn't passed. Where are they? Sadiq screamed, his voice breaking. Bring them back! You delayed, she said simply. You refused to pay your debt when it was scored. So power collected without mercy. It took what it was owed and more. Sadiq collapsed to his knees. I didn't understand, he sobbed. I didn't know it would be this. I thought I thought it was symbolic, a test, something I could negotiate. No one ever understands, Mama Zainab said. And for the first time, there was a genuine pity in her voice. That is why the debt is always paid in blood. She stood preparing to leave. Where are they? Sadiq whispered. Where all debts go, into the void that power creates when it consumes what it is owed. Can I get them back? She paused, turned, looked at him with something almost like sympathy. What do you have left to trade, Sadiq Bello? He realized nothing. He had absolutely nothing left. Sadiq Bello still lived on the edge of Akombi. His house, the one that once glowed with light and laughter, now rot from the inside out, paint peeling, garden overgrown, windows dark even in daylight. People cross the street to avoid passing too close. His name has become a warning, the kind elders use when young men talk too loudly about shortcuts and connections. Remember Sadiq Bello, they say. Remember what happened when you want power more than anything. And sometimes, on night, when the air is heavy and the dog won't stop barking, people swear they hear it. That scream, the sound of a man who finally understood that power doesn't give, it only takes. In Akombi, they have a saying now. When ambition whispers too loudly, mother pulls their children closer. Because Sadiq's story isn't just about one man's hunger. It is about all of us. About the shortcut we are tempted to take. About the price we think we can afford but never really can. Power does not ask what you are willing to give. It takes what it decides you can afford to lose. And it is always, always more than you think. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more stories. Comment your thoughts. Share with someone who needs to hear this. I will see you when the next story calls.